How's it going, everybody? Gaurav Bhatt and Mihir Vasavre here. You're listening to the Express Sports Podcast, and it's game time. Very happy to be joined today by Rob Moody. A chunk of our listener base, I'm sure, knows who Rob is, but if you don't, I can say with 100% certainty that you have enjoyed his work. Perhaps to a lot of you, he is Robelinda2. That's his handle on YouTube and Twitter. His YouTube channel has over 1 million followers. I'm only slightly exaggerating when I say that he has every delivery ever bowled in the history of cricket on tape. Rob is a modern day archivist, a chronicler, a YouTuber before even the term became famous, and he is a lead guitarist for his band. He's a guitar instructor, but more than anything else, he is a cricket superfan. That's a fair assessment, Rob?
I would say yes. Something like that.
So we at Express Sports had been planning to do this for a long time, but unfortunate untimely passing of Shane Warne earlier this month, and we realized that we needed to bring you on now. There have been dozens of great obits and tributes, couple of them here at the Indian Express itself, but the emotions your Twitter thread on Shane Warne's greatest deliveries evoked is sort of unmatchable. So how big of a loss do you feel, and what was the process like going through that footage again? Did you gain newfound respect for Warne all over again?
Well, it was pretty weird. I'd gotten home from a gig at about 1 a.m. last Friday night and got home, checked Twitter, and then I saw the first post that said Shane Warne has died at 52, and instantly I thought, come on, guys, you can't be posting that sort of stuff. Like, don't joke about that. So I thought I'll check Google, I'll check the news. Nothing to be seen. And so I blocked the guy who posted the initial post. I unblocked him later just because I don't want to see that stuff. But then about 15 minutes after that, after I saw that first post, it just exploded online. And especially in Australia, we're mostly asleep, but for everyone in the subcontinent, Europe, England, the West Indies, most of the cricket world was wide awake when that happened. And I was about to go to bed, and I thought, I should just put up some Shane Warne videos. I've uploaded hundreds over the years anyway, so I just had to go and find them all and chuck them all into a thread. But at the same time, I was shaking. I couldn't believe it. Like, I thought, this is unbelievable. I mean, I sat there for ages just looking at the screen, just thinking, this is the craziest death. It's just ridiculous. Like, it's natural causes. I mean, we've all seen youngish cricketers die over the last 20 years. Obviously, Phil Hughes was the youngest, but David Hooks at the nightclub here in Victoria, and Dean Jones, with Shane Warne being 52, with seemingly not a lot wrong. Yeah, it was both sort of shocking and scary at the same time. But I knew that even, when he was alive and well, everyone loves Shane Warne videos anyway, because new fans get to see crazy deliveries and even crazy antics from the past. And it just, people now can just celebrate all the positive things and the awesome footage, which I've got in abundance. So what a great opportunity to share it with all the fans out there.
Rob, I mean, it's just fascinating you tell us about this incident, because I guess Warnie's passing was one of those moments where we'll all always remember as where we were at that point. It'll go down as one of those moments in our lives. But one thing that struck me really, so I don't know if, I'm sure I wasn't the only one, because about an hour or so after the news broke, the first thing I did was to go on Twitter, go on your handle, and just hope that you have a video or two there. And you had them. The speed at which you bring out videos, you upload them, and the relevant videos, you always have the relevant videos at that moment. How do you manage that? I mean, if we were to pivot from Warnie's passing away to getting those moments on, because they're just such an essential point of just hitting the right emotion, the right note.
Well, it's pretty funny because people tell that to me all the time, and it's not always accurate because, for instance, yesterday I was just looking at old videos on my account and I saw the video of Navjot Sidhu hitting a six off the last ball before lunch. I thought, oh yeah, I posted that about a year ago. I'll retweet it. And then everyone's going, Rob, right on point, and I'm like, what? What do you mean?
So just to butt in there, again, I was one of those people who thought it was right on place because just at that time, Sidhu was just hit out of the park at the elections.
I had absolutely no idea. Everyone's like, wow, you're such a cricket fan. You follow Indian politics. That's crazy. I'm like, what are you guys talking about? You're crazy. I got no idea. That was pretty funny. But in general, though, during the big lockdowns in 2020, that was when I sort of, really upped my Twitter game with uploading heaps of footage, but also logged every video with the link. So if I ever need to find something really quick, I've got a record of all the videos. And there's been thousands already, over the last 2 years. So if I need to do something really quick, I can generally find it. If I haven't uploaded it, then I've got to hit the archives and, which is every day, and find. But again, during the lockdowns in 2020 and 2021, because we had a long period, ages, 8-9 months.
Yeah.
You couldn't go 5 kilometers outside of your house. So I spent all that time catching up. Everyone's got busy days and families and jobs, but all of a sudden I've got almost endless time to organize my archive. So there was about 30,000 DVDs I ripped onto hard drives and everything so I could have access quicker, because getting things off tapes and DVDs is so painful and time consuming.
30,000. So this goes beyond hobby. I mean, I don't classify this as hobby. So how did it start for you?
I think it started just like, when I started, everyone was doing it. All my friends were recording either football or tennis or cricket, because when VCRs first came into existence in the sort of the mid to late 70s, they were only for rich people. So by the time they became affordable, I was born and my parents bought this hunk of junk, really. It was cheap, rubbish VCR. It was 1982, so I was 5. But seriously, the VCR, there's nothing comparable in this generation. Like, there was no technology in the house at all, just a crappy TV. And all of a sudden a VCR was like, you can't even imagine how awesome that is, seeing as now everyone's house is full of technology, just endless list of tech that is not really exciting anymore for us, because the game changed a long time ago. The VCR was magic. You could chuck in a tape, and press record and then watch TV back later. Like, wow. And I'd record everything. Just everything, kid shows, the news, anything, just to physically be able to watch something again, because you just couldn't do it. And that part of technology is completely lost on generations after that, because it was just an accepted thing. Of course, you can record anything, anywhere, of anything, and watch it back later or listen to it back later. So, but I ended up sticking with cricket and music videos. So I'd tape MTV, all that sort of stuff, and cricket. And that has pretty much stayed ever since 1982. But once I started, I didn't see any need to stop. I remember the 80s cricket was so amazing, so you didn't want to miss any match. Even a boring match back then that I think, I should just chuck that out. 20 years later, I'm like, wow, how good was that match? It was great too, So, yeah, obviously I've got a mental problem. Like, obviously. I got to be nuts. Because it got to a stage where, sure, all my friends were recording stuff and their dads were all recording movies, but then they sort of stopped when they got to about 50 tapes. And I got to the stage where my parents, I had to kick them out of their bigger bedroom because I needed the space for all the tapes. So even they were supportive enough for no real reason. Like, they should have said, oi, like, you're turning into a nutcase. Any chance you could stop, become a normal kid? Didn't happen.
Rob, you've been through generations of technology, right? You just mentioned VCR. After that, there were VCDs and DVDs, writable, rewritable, and we all used to rip music CDs and write them onto a DVD. Now, with the current technological setup, it's so easy, right? You have screen recording, you've been recording everything. Now that you look down back the memory lane and you look at your archives, is there an art to this sort of archive? It can't be as simple as just running the tape go and just checking it back later. Is there a formula or a checklist that you follow?
Well, I guess it's changed over the years with the types of technology that was being used. At some point, I did just press record and keep it. And if it was on DVD or whatever, then I'd just rip it to a hard drive or just keep it on DVD. But at some point, I realized that I've got actually no idea. Like, I've just got literally 30,000 DVDs that I've just got that are in folders that I've never watched back. I don't even know if they're recorded properly. I'd go back occasionally and make videos if I needed something from that particular huge stash, but I'd nip away, every now and again. I'd just get a few tapes or DVDs and try and find a way to store them digitally in a way that I can access it when I want, because that's why I recorded the damn things to begin with, so I could watch them back. But that became really difficult at one point because it's so time consuming, so it just gets too much for one person to do. I'd need a team of people, but thankfully the coronavirus lockdowns gave me that time. So I just spend days where I didn't even sleep, just getting everything organised and all that sort of stuff. But you've got to be organised. So I do try, but these days it is really easy to record the cricket. So it's all files now. So there's nothing I can hold and touch, just a file. So it's got to be good at managing your hard drives and file systems.
So I guess in that sense, YouTube was a godsend because now you have terabytes of space where you can just upload the clips. But then again, it became a double-edged sword because of the notorious YouTube guidelines and policies. And I don't even want to get into the umpteen number of strikes that you might have received. How do you walk that tightrope and how do you balance, what is the key to Robelinda's over 1 million followers without any recent copyright strikes?
Well, I'm always sitting on 2, and for those who don't know, 3 instant termination. So they expire every 6 months, I think. So I'm always sitting at 2, so I'm always on the edge. So every day I wake up and I just check, because I've seen it where I've had someone else's channel open and the next day I refresh it, this channel does no longer exist, it has been terminated due to multiple third-party copyright violations or something. I'm like, that's going to be me. It's going to be me one day. I've come to terms with that. But the problem is, it isn't even a balancing act. It's completely unfair because they change what is infringing all the time. And there's bogus claims everywhere. Anyone who's run a channel has been hit with bogus claims. It's really unfair that YouTube's policy of guilty before being proved innocent is really wrong. Like that, there was that kid a few years ago who got every video of Lady Gaga's YouTube channel copyrighted under his name, because you can do that. You can just go on and do it, but you've got to be prepared to face court if you're wrong. And he got in heaps of trouble. But as far as the cricket's concerned, it's all a mess. The boards are all a mess. Copyright Integrity International, who are employed by most of the cricket boards to handle their digital copyrights, it's pretty random. Like, I could upload a random over from a match and get copyrighted. I could upload from the same match and over from 20 overs later and not get copyrighted. Like, what are you supposed to do? Like, it's impossible to actually know. I uploaded a 1-second video of Ian Bell playing a cover drive, 1 second exactly. I timed it exactly to 1 second, and it got hit with a copyright strike before it even uploaded. Wow. While it was processed, it hadn't even finished yet. So what's that about? 1 second. You can't tell me that 1 second is so copyrighted. It's impossible. So I've sort of given up caring because it's just too hard. But I still don't do the really suicidal things like IPL or anything from the last probably 15 years, if I can help it. ICC told me I can't upload anything from 92 onwards, yet millions of channels do. But they get terminated eventually. Since I started, all the channels that I've liked over the years, they're all gone. Long gone. So all it takes is 1 or 2 videos they think they can get away with, and then next they wake up, you've been terminated.
I guess the process is made even more complex because of the number of boards and broadcasters and all these parties involved. But in that sense, a couple of years back when your Twitter, I think, was suspended or it received strikes, CA, Cricket Australia, came to your support in the sense that they wanted you to carry on. Has that sense of recognition, has it increased over the years since you've been doing this? And how do you get along with different boards?
I get along with the boards that have contacted me directly, has mostly been good. And that is, well, for instance, the West Indies Cricket Board, they came at me last year randomly with a bunch of strikes. And I was like, really? I've had nothing to do with them previously. And you wouldn't really pick them as being ones who would actively, manually go after someone. But I didn't say anything, but I did post it to Twitter. And then Twitter just did its thing. And next thing you know, I've got an email and a private DM from someone involved at the board, and we sorted it out. But it was the heavy-handedness just straight up, which was a bit, it doesn't need to be that way, So Cricket Australia did the same thing. They just came down hard. And then the backlash, that was the funniest thing, I reckon, of all time on my channel, where there was a press conference about something serious. I can't remember what it was. But that was the morning that my Twitter account got suspended by Cricket Australia. And then a few hours later, one of the journalists here in Melbourne messaged me saying, I'm going to ask the chairman at this press conference about your video, if your channel being terminated. And he did. And it was just the dumbest thing. And he actually said, if that's true, I'll sort it. And I didn't expect that. But what can be expected is the backlash from the fans. So so I'm sure that's a thing. I don't know to what extent, I can just get away with stuff and just expect that the backlash will work in my favor. Obviously, I'm not trying to provoke any boards into doing anything, but it is pretty cool, that the chairman of the cricket board, and in no time, the account was back up, like 10 minutes later. So that was pretty cool. But still, what they terminated the account for was just dumb. Like, there's no way I could have avoided that. They just picked a random video and just went at me. So what do? The life of uploading.
Rob, on this, if you look at the larger picture, who do you think the game kind of belongs to? Is it the fans? Because fans, if you get these kind of videos out to the fans, I mean, if you take the simple case of, say, the Sidhu Six or all the Vaughan videos that he uploaded, it just got a new generation of followers to see what Vaughan did back in the 90s. Perhaps they wouldn't have seen it back then. And of course, then you have the corporates who are pouring in all the big money and, running the sport in a way. But shouldn't the world be a little more tolerant, a little more liberal of allowing videos to be used by people like you, the modern day archivists? I mean, this is what we will be doing going forward, right? This is the new form of archivals. It's no more the heaps of paper in a library somewhere. It's videos out there in public, which we'll refer to 10 years later. How do you look at that?
Well, I think you've got, fans love cricket. They watch it on TV. They would like to think that they own the game. And I actually agree with the boards in some aspects, because there's a lot of money these days. Whether there was a lot of money in the 1987 England-Pakistan series that I got a strike for, you got to question that. How much is that worth back in 1987? Now, all these decades later, surely that's not an issue. But obviously I can see now, because, some of the boards actively do show recent highlights and things like that. And they monetize the hell out of it, as is, their prerogative. But fans often bring up with me the fact that other sports are freely available. Like, they always bring up American basketball. You can upload anything you want. They don't care. So you think, okay, well, that's a big, business. American basketball is big. And cricket's relatively small compared to, globally. I know there was some poll done recently where it said cricket was the second biggest sport in the world or something, but you don't feel like it is. It's still, I'm from Australia. We've always been big at cricket, so lots of other countries have always seemed smaller, New Zealand, Zimbabwe, Sri Lanka, Pakistan, India in the 70s and 80s was small, obviously not now. So it's difficult to know the way forward with showing the highlights. Like there's the cutoff year for me, even 10 years ago, hasn't changed. Like, it's still nothing from the 80s will get you in trouble, but 90s onwards gets you in trouble. At some point, the 90s, it already is miles away. It's so far back in the distance in the past. It can't continue to be that way. Like, if it's 40 and you can't upload something from 50 years ago, that's a problem.
But in a way, you got the perfect decades, right? 80s is a gold mine when it comes to cricket videos, or the legends, the matches, everything. At least till 92, we had great matches. How do you view your role? Of course, you said you do it as a hobby, but in a way, you've gone beyond that. Do you see yourself as someone who kind of also attracts a new generation to something that happened in the 80s, kind of, because we live in a cricket era now where it's instant, we forget what's happened last week. To bring back something from the 80s or the 90s, how special is that?
Or just to follow it up from what Mihir asked, not just educating sort of a new generation with all the yesteryear glories, but for all of us also. And there must be moments where people watch your clips and they revisit their own nostalgia and they think about that delivery and where they were. I'm sure you must have received those comments as well. So how do you see your role in sort of all this?
Yeah, for me, it's a bit weird. I'm not some mastermind at any of this. I'm just a regular dude. I don't really think about it really at all. The best thing about the internet has been just the engagement with the genuine fans that will go, hey, Rob, do you recall that pull shot from Greg Blewett in 97, of Chris Cairns at the Gabba? I'm like, oh, yes, I'll go and get it. I'm like, I remember that. Fans know those tiny things, like they remember these tiny things. And that's what's really cool, because that's exactly the things that I like, random stuff. Like someone will say, hey, Rob, that time some bowler at the SCG in 89 broke the stump can. And I'm like, I remember that. That was Greg Campbell, Ricky Ponting's uncle. I'll go and get it. And then I'll check YouTube to see if it's up. No one's done it. So I go, great, chuck it up. So every day I'm reminded of incidents because there's so many fans. I mean, I think if I didn't have the videos, I'd be the one absolutely harassing people online for the same things. It's all a bit strange, the fact that no one else, well, very few people have heaps of stuff. Everyone knows there's several people like me. You know, I'm definitely not the only one, but that's just the generation I've come from. So it is really cool that people use it as an educational tool, or that wasn't how it started. Literally, the YouTube channel started just to show some mates some videos that I had sitting around, and I thought, oh, I could upload that to show you. Otherwise, I'd have to just, literally mail the CD to you, which I had been doing for a few years. If people wanted things, I'd mail it out to them, which is crazy to think that you would do that now. But, I see it as just very simple, but maybe I should think of it more than it is. But the more time I spend doing it, the less time I do spending time doing actual work and paying bills. Kids cost a lot of money these days. I have 2 kids. They cost me heaps. So, there's some days where I'm at work or I'm touring or playing a show. I'm like, oh, I can't wait to go home and just lock myself in front of my computer. I've got all these matches I've got to try and edit down. Or these days, around this time of year, the 92 World Cup was happening. The 96 World Cup was happening. I'm like, I want to go back and revisit all those matches and upload some clips so people could see them. So I can see them, so I've got them online, so the more I've got there, the more I can go back and recall those videos. So heaps of it is about me, actually, just being able to find the clips online that I want to see.
And it's not just for the casual fans either, Rob, because cricketers themselves, their colleagues, and I remember I would like to call it infamous Steve Waugh runout compilation where, he's running his partners out, and that was a lengthy video. And Shane Warne himself, he retweeted that and he took a dig at Waugh. And what was that interaction like, and how does it feel? And did you have any other interactions with Warne or other cricketers because of your work?
Well, I've had heaps of cricketers contact me for footage of themselves playing. Now, that's one aspect which always surprised me, that the players largely don't have like a library of every ball of their innings, because you just thought they would, right? Like, you would think that, surely Tendulkar's got every ball that he's ever faced in cricket sitting at home. I'm surely he does. Probably he doesn't. I think the first person who asked me was Stuart McGill. He asked me how many balls would I have of his test career. I said, mate, every ball. You kidding? You debuted in 98. That's nothing. I got everything. So I sent him some stuff. He sent me some bottles of wine. And he's been really cool. After that, it just kept happening, especially domestic cricketers in England, India, Australia, New Zealand, South Africa have contacted me for things, and mostly I've been able to help. Obviously, it's nice when the proper international superstars, past or present, notice the videos and watch them, and I know they do because they said, and that's pretty cool because they're just cricket fans too. How many cricketers coming to the team, into the international team, and they're known as just crazy cricket fans. Marnus Labuschagne, he's a crazy cricket fan. He watches stuff. Previously, it was Mike Hussey. Mr. Cricket. Ricky Ponting, I know he watches cricket on YouTube. He always has. So the players do. Aaron Finch, Glenn Maxwell watches all my stuff. He loves it, which is really cool. So we're all the same. They're just way better than us and way richer, but they still just like watching cricket, So
yeah, they won't have to worry about the copyright strikes if they get one.
Yeah, that's right.
But do you have a personal favorite or video that you go back to, kind of, if you're having a rough day, perhaps to relax or just to have fun? Do you have a favorite video that you often go back to?
Well, it's changed over the years due to several things. One is when I really upped my Twitter game, and then I had to deal with the limitation of Twitter being 2 minutes and 20 seconds maximum. At the moment, I'm paying Twitter to upload longer videos because it's only $5 a month, So, yeah, it just saves so much time. And because to edit something down to 2 minutes 20 that was an hour video on YouTube is savage. So prior to doing heaps on Twitter, I did quite like the Inzamam Runouts video.
Oh, yeah.
It's just funny. You just laugh.
Those are gems.
You're just like, if you're having a crappy day or you're not feeling well, you watch the Inzamam video and you just die. So that's really cool. But on Twitter, there's two favorites. One is the 2 minutes 20 of Ricky Ponting running people out, because it's just bang, bang, bang for 2 minutes. And it's just ridiculous that anyone could have that many runouts. And I left out about 50 because runouts are so unique. There's only been, if you name all the players in history that people say that were great fielders, but particularly great at runouts, you can't even list 10. Like, you can't. You do the obvious ones, Ponting, Jonty Rhodes, Andrew Simons, Jadeja, and then the list gets, a bit harder after that with guys who used to you'd bank them for 4 or 5 cracking runouts every season, that video is great.
Yeah, it's also funny because I guess in the 80s and the 90s, we had better runouts, if we can say that, they were more funny, more, bizarre runouts than we have today, where everyone's fit and basically they just missed by a centimeter or two. There's a number of misunderstandings on field. We won't get a Inzamam video from anyone of this generation, I guess.
You wouldn't think so, but that person would be absolutely slammed in the press every minute of the day if they were if they looked like they were that unfit and getting run out and running out his teammates all the time. Like the Shane Warne thing with running out Steve Waugh, going back to that. So when I retweeted the Cricinfo tweet that said, Steve Waugh has been involved in the most runouts where the partner has been run out, instantly I was outraged because massive Steve Waugh fan here, and Shane Warne was all over it in an instant, started messaging me, and that chat, I would never post that, a screenshot of the chat. It is hilarious. Like, I thought, dude, you can't be telling me this stuff. You don't even know who I am. Like, I could be thinking, man, Twitter's going to just explode if I posted a screenshot of this chat. It'd be nuts. He just didn't care. And he just said, mate, Steve Waugh, the most selfish ever. Like you're proving it now. And I'm like, well, hang on. I'm trying to disprove it with the video, you guys. It's the wrong opposite. If you watch the video all the way through, you'll see that his teammates are burning themselves all the time. They're all in the 49th over of a one-dayer where they've got to go for a quick single. But, so I thought that was the funniest thing, that I was trying to show that Steve Waugh wasn't actually to blame, because you can't tell from a stat or from a scorecard who was to blame, just because there's one where Steve Waugh blocks it and Mark Waters bolts. There was never a single. Mark Waugh gets run out. And the commentators say, what was Mark Waugh thinking? Goes down in the book as Steve Waugh being left not out because he burned Mark Waugh. Not the case. So the video does show that, but people seem to want to focus on the fact that Shane Warne was right.
Amazing.
Which is really funny.
Yeah, it is. I mean, at this point, I think perfect time to get our producer Shashank in, because he's just the opposite of the kind of people we've been talking about, the cricket nuts. Shashank is everything opposite to what a sports fan would be. He doesn't follow sport that much, but he is into, I guess, a lot of tech and videos and editing and stuff. So I'm guessing, Shashank, you would be fascinated with the way he kind of brings up stuff, like we mentioned at the top of the episode, quickly and timely, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, this conversation has been really fascinating for me. And I was just curious, is there any clip, Rob, that sort of you wish you had archived, something that maybe slipped through the cracks or something that you're still on the lookout for?
Yeah, absolutely. So no one ever has had access to every single match that's being played in the world. I mean, now everyone can get it. But say 10 years ago, you couldn't. So obviously, if I lived in England or South Africa or New Zealand, I'd have a completely different batch of footage. And it would absolutely destroy me to know there was a test match going on that I was never going to get footage of, because yet someone else was freely recording it going, yeah, this is great. And I'm sitting in Melbourne crying, listening to or watching the Cricinfo score just tick over, thinking, But there's if it's being televised and then I don't have it, then I'm pretty annoyed. But prior to VCRs existing, most hardcore cricket fans, especially Aussie fans, really want the 1975-76 Australia-West Indies series. The matches have lost due to a flood. Every couple of days I get some person from India asking me for the famous 175 by Kapil Dev. I'm not that much of a magician to find footage that was not even televised in the first place, because the BBC was on strike in the 83 World Cup. Every time, Rob, do you have the 175? I'm like, yeah. How would you like it? In 4K? I'll send it right now. Let me get back in my DeLorean and go back to 1983 and record it off my phone sneakily. Doesn't exist, mate. But that would be cool. But the problem with matches not in Australia or England in the 80s, say, is that the footage is terrible. I mean, it's not an insult to any country. They're all bad. Like, you know, it looks awful. Even New Zealand. Everyone knows that the Aussie coverage was premium in the 80s. They brought the colour, you know, the coloured outfits and just better coverage in general, because it was pathetic in the 70s. And, you know, you guys will know. I mean, in India, the footage was terrible all the way until about 93, 94, 95. And then it just gradually got...
Since you mentioned India and footage, one of the articles we've done a couple of years ago was, I think it was Sunil Gavaskar's 10,000th run, the match. That archival footage has been overwritten by a departmental table tennis match. So it's gone. It doesn't exist anymore. So if you can find that, Rob, that's a challenge for you.
I actually did upload that, and it got copyright striked years ago. And I found it on a video called Sunil Gavaskar, The Art of Batting. And the guy who produced the video personally gave me a copyright strike without any warning. And that was really unfair, because I would have taken it down. Like, if he's personally made this video for India in the late 80s, I would have said, yeah, I always do that. Like, uploaded a Viv Richards documentary called Hitting Across the Line, and the legal team behind it, this is like a 1990 video, VHS video, and that they contacted me and said, hey, we ask you to take this down because, you know, we own the copyright. What am I going to say? Of course, I'll take it down. So I did. I just made it private. So in case there's a change of heart or something, I can put it back up. But yeah, it's crazy that something from 1983, I mean, I was pretty annoyed at that because I thought, come on, like literally so long ago, almost 40 years ago, people have to let it go. If the footage is not available anywhere else, if you can't get it anywhere and you can't see it, it's just cricket footage. What good is it just sitting on someone's hard drive somewhere, not to be seen anywhere? How valuable can it possibly be that you go to the extent of legally going after someone? It's just cricket.
Yeah, I agree with you. But, you know, Rob, you mentioned that you had 2 kids. I mean, I don't know how old they are, but I was just wondering, like, what do they make of, you know, your work, and maybe your partner, if they have thoughts on it, like, what do they make of your work and your passion?
Well, there's a lot of funny stories here. So when my wife Belinda first came round to my parents' house and saw my room full of cricket videos, obviously she was just trying to get the hell out of there as soon as she could, because clearly this was not going to work out because I'm a nutter. But no, stayed ever since. And that's 23 years ago. My kids, they're 12 and 14. My son is 14. He's pretty happy that none of his friends' dads have a YouTube channel with 1 billion views. So I'm a bit of a hero there, which is pretty funny. But he gives me shit every single day, relentlessly, for having so many tapes and DVDs everywhere. And every day, I just constantly cop it from him. And it's pretty funny. He sends me an email from school. Are you downloading any DVDs now? I'm like, no. Like at school, he's in English, and he's emailing me, what are you downloading now? Are you ripping any DVDs? I'm like, no, I'm not. I'm working too. This doesn't stop every day. So it's pretty funny. Absolutely. I'm just like, yeah. But yeah, they all think it's funny. They think it's funny that I've got these 2 completely just weird sort of alternate existences. You know, like they see me at home all the time doing cricket stuff, and then they'll come and see me play a show somewhere, and they're like, oh, yeah, we forgot that you actually have a job. It's pretty funny.
Rob, this has been fantastic. This has been an education, and I would like to think this has been sort of a tribute to Vonnie as well, because like I said, we have wanted to do this with you for a long time, but it's serendipitous that we have you and your memories of Shane Warne and all the stuff that you do. Thanks a lot for joining us, and all the best.
No problem. I could chat about cricket for hours, so it's good that you cut me off.
All right. Thanks a lot. On that note, everybody, let's wrap it up for today. Stay tuned to the Express Sports Podcast. Game Time comes out every Saturday. But more importantly, stay safe. Adios.
You were listening to Express Sports by the Indian Express. This week's show was edited and mixed by Suresh Pawar and produced by me, Shashank Bhargav. If you like the show, then do subscribe to us wherever you get your podcasts. You can also recommend the show to someone you think will like it. Share it with a friend or someone in your family. It's the best way for people to get to know about us. You can also tweet us at Express Podcasts and write to us at podcasts@indianexpress.com.